Hello, all you scaredy cats and kittens, and welcome to the Two Scaredy Cats podcast, where we talk about all things strange, unusual, and paranormal. We're your hostess with the mostest. I'm Stacy.
I'm Kara.
So, Kara, this weekend we hung out together, so I really don't need to ask you what you did because I was with you and I know what you did. We're going to do things a little differently this time than we normally do, and we're going to talk about where we went, and I'm going to give some history about it, and then Kara's going to fill us in on some of the hauntings that happen at this particular place that we happened to visit. This weekend, Kara and I went and visited the Ohio State Reformatory up in Mansfield, Ohio. So I'll go ahead and I'm going to give us a brief history, and then Kara will tell us all the fun things that happened there, and then we'll tell you some of the stuff that we saw there and what happened, because there was some stuff that actually...
Talk about our own experiences,
yes.
Like how the tour was.
Yeah, so in case you decide you want to go, you'll kind of have an idea of what to expect and what it's all about.
Yeah.
All right, so the Ohio State Reformatory, or otherwise known as Mansfield Reformatory, was built between 1886 and 1910. So it took them a very long time to build this place, almost 20 years. And it remained open from its opening in 1910 until 1990. So it was open for over 100 years. The goal was to reform and rehabilitate the inmates, and they would receive religion, education, and trade while they were there. Is how it worked is when an inmate came in, they would sign up for an 18-month stint. And once they were done with those 18 months, if they felt that they had been reformed, then they would be released back into society. If they were not ready to be released, then they would re-up again for another 18 months. Apparently, this place was really good at what they did, and they didn't have a lot of repeat offenders, like people that would be back into the prison again, like some of your other more traditional type prisons today have going on. Yeah. So, yeah, which I thought was kind of interesting. So, interestingly enough, and we didn't know this, and I don't us learning about this when we were on the tour, but more than 2 decades before the reformatory was even built, it was a site for a Civil War training camp.
Oh, I didn't know that.
So starting in 1861, soldiers would come there to have drills in preparation for the war. Back then, it was called Camp Mordecai Bartley, and the name came from a Mansfield man who was actually Ohio's governor in the 1840s. The camp remained open until 1867. Now, they say that when the camp was open, it was more for, more of your rich people and people of power would come there to learn and prepare for the upcoming Civil War that was brewing, as everybody knows happened back then. So, after the camp had dissipated or whatever, the land was bought by the state of Ohio, and they started the construction of the reformatory. But the funniest thing is the reformatory wasn't actually begin to be built until 1886. Now remember, the Civil War camp ended in 1867. So there was almost a 19-year difference until the actual reformatory started being built. And like I said, it wasn't finished until 1910. And that was on account of some funding issues that they experienced. When they finally completed it, the total cost of the prison was, and this was a lot of money for back then, it was $1,326,769 to complete when all was said and done.
It's expensive for then.
Yeah, I mean, if you take that in today's time, that's almost like, at least $20 or $30 million.
I saw something that said that the one of the cell blocks is the largest standing steel cell block in the world.
Exactly, and I was
I can't remember if it's east or the west
It's
one.
the east one.
Yeah,
because it's like
was it the east?
the east.
Yeah,
It's 6 feet, 6 stories high, and that's like the largest.
Yeah,
one.
6 stories high.
We were on that. That's crazy to believe that we were 6 stories up. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it was scary to look down.
Yes, it was, but I didn't realize it was 6 stories up. I thought maybe we were like 3 or 4, not 6. But yeah, that is one of the things that the prison is famous for. So the reformatory was built, interestingly enough, by an architect by the name of Levi Schofield, who designed the prison as a half German castle and a half Gothic church. Now, when we were in there, I don't know if you picked up on some of the Gothic architecture, especially in the church area. Remember when we were in there, in that little chapel area or whatever? It definitely had the Gothic theme going on in there. He believed in psychology, so his design was to help provide spiritual uplift to the prisoners that were incarcerated there. Yep, that's why he decided on that type of architecture. The Ohio State Reformatory has a graveyard outside of the gates with 215 numbered markers. Now, when we were there, we didn't get to see those, and I don't know why, because they weren't, like, we came in the front. I believe those were... Yeah, I believe those were to the back, so we never got to see those when we were there. Most of the people that died there were victims of disease, influenza, tuberculosis, but some of them died from less natural causes, like, violence, and some unlucky individuals who were sent deep beneath the prison's walls in what is known as solitary confinement, or in that particular place called the hole, is where a lot of people came to their death. So being in near total darkness, as what happens when you're in the hole, it was tough for some of these individuals, and they ended up dying in there. They had one inmate who hung himself while he was in there. They had another one that managed to set himself on fire. Nobody knows how or where he got the matches from to set himself on fire, but he managed to do it. And 2 men that went into one of these tomb-like cells together, only one of them walked out, and he left his cellmate's dead body behind, hidden, well, as hidden as it can be, I guess, in one of those cells, as we saw, basically hidden underneath one of the beds in there. Ooh. So one of the most ugliest and bloodiest incidents that happened there actually happened outside of the walls of the prison. So in July of 1948, the reformatory's farm boss and his wife and daughter were kidnapped and shot to death by 2 parolees from the prison who were bent on revenge. And originally they were trying to find, like, the warden. But when they got released and they came back to the Mansfield area, all they could find was the farm boss, the guy, because it was a working farm at one point that all the prisoners worked at. And they decided they wanted to kill somebody, and so they went and they decided to kill this guy and his family. From everything I've read, the main guy that headed this up was basically insane and was not altogether there psychologically. And his friend that he brought along with him to help do all this was dumb. And so he would basically follow whatever the insane guy would tell him to do. So this incident resulted in a 6-state manhunt for these 2 guys that killed the farm boss and his family. And it ended up in a shootout that left one of them in custody, and that was the guy that was a nutburger, that was, psychotic. And the other one who was, like, dumb, it left him dead. So then in 1950, disaster struck the prison again. And this time it was in the living quarters of the warden, and at the time the warden's name was Arthur Glock. Now, this Arthur was very well liked and very well known there in Mansfield and in the prison. Everybody, the guards and the prisoners, all liked him. He would actually play music, which is kind of funny because they did this in Shawshank, which I'll talk about that in a minute. But he would play these beautiful operas on the record player for the inmates sometimes as a way for them to, experience a little bit of life on the outside. On this particular day in 1950, him and his wife and their family were getting ready to go to church. And his wife, Helen, was getting ready, and she wanted to get her jewelry box, which happened to be on a shelf closet in their apartments. And she got it off the shelf, but when she went to reach for it, her husband had a pistol hiding in a box on top of it, and she knocked over the box that the pistol was in, and it fell out, and it ended up discharging the gun, and it ended up hitting her and killing her. So she basically was taken to the hospital there on site, and she lived for 3 days, but ended up dying from pneumonia from her gunshot wound. Yeah. But more bad luck strikes our friend Arthur. 9 years later, while he is working in his office there that we saw when we were on the tour, ends up suffering from a heart attack and dies. In that chair,
oh, wow.
in that office that we were in.
Oh, the chair that you sat in?
Yeah, in the chair that I sat in. Oh, joy and rapture. Today, people claim that when you're in that part of the building, that you can hear a man and woman talking from beyond the grave. And they think that it's him and her just, like holding a conversation like a husband and a wife would hold. The reformatory was closed on New Year's Eve of 1990 because a federal court ordered it closed due to its inhumane conditions. One of the prisoners that was there wrote a letter to the federal court demanding that it be closed and citing some of the issues going on. There was overcrowding. This prison had been being used far longer than it was supposed to. So eventually it got closed down. But the interesting thing was that it was actually supposed to be shut down in 1986, but due to delays in the construction of the new prison that we saw when we were there, it actually took them 4 years to shut it down in 1990. So after closing the prison, most of the grounds and the support buildings that were on the property were destroyed, including there was like an outer wall that surrounded the whole prison area that I saw some old photos that is not there now, obviously, because they took it down. They said in 1995, the remaining parts of the prison were transformed to a museum, which is what we went and saw this weekend. And today, the east cell block remains the largest freestanding steel cell block in the world at 6 stories high. So also to note, because I know everybody's thinking, well, where is this place? What are you talking about? Stephen King, who is like one of my favorite authors and who is one of the authors in the stories that helped me get into horror, wrote one of his short stories, got turned into a movie called Shawshank Redemption, which was filmed here in the 1990s. I think it was 94 that it was filmed. And they actually...
Stephen King wrote
that?
Yeah,
you didn't know that? Yeah, it was one of his short stories. I know, he's not known for that. I mean, he's known for more for, like, It and all that, but yeah. It was actually one of my favorite stories. It was different than, some of his other stuff. Yeah. But yeah, like we said, over the weekend, Kara and I actually got to take a tour of this place, and it was a very interesting place. So what are some of the hauntings that happened there, Kara, that you found out about when you were doing some research?
So there was actually an inmate named James Lockhart who he covered himself in turpentine and set himself on fire inside of his cell, actually.
Ooh.
And he's one of the more aggressive spirits.
And does that help?
Very loud.
Does this happen down in the hole, or was this like in one of the main like?
No, this is in the main cell
really?
block.
Okay.
It was not the one that caught himself on fire. It was a different one.
All right. Wow.
Yeah. So, like, can you imagine just, like, the smell? Like, if your neighbor...
No, I can't.
You saw how close together they are, or, like, his screaming.
I couldn't even imagine.
Turpentine.
Right. That had to have been awful. And the smell of burnt flesh. Can you imagine how long that took to get that smell out of there?
Yeah, and it's all metal, so it probably just like cooked them
quickly too.
Or if there were other people in there with him, because
some of them had.
So one of the things I saw, like, one of the issues was the overcrowding of the jail, which is why it closed it down, was because it was so overcrowded, and they created a new one. But there were 4 people in a cell.
What? Wait a minute.
Not just 2, Mom. 4. They would have 4
we
people
saw
in those
cells.
cells.
And I am sorry. I was like, not big enough
and
for one
4
person.
people?
Right.
I thought 2 people was a lot.
But to have 4 people, there's no way. You would be sitting on top of one another.
Like, at the height of it.
Wow, that's insane.
During the, overcrowding, there would be 4 people in there. And they were even smaller in the other side, too, remember?
Yeah, I can't even imagine. That would be nuts. Yeah. I would lose my mind.
That was one of the interesting things. They also nicknamed this place Dracula's Castle because of how it looked.
Oh, yeah, because of the Gothic architecture.
Like
right, yeah.
Yeah, because of the Gothic architecture, it was like a nickname for it.
I've not heard that.
The woman you were talking about, Helen, who shot herself, or on accident, she knocked her thing. They actually, people will smell her perfume, actually, in that area.
Oh, yeah, it's rose. Isn't it rose?
They'll smell the rose. It's a rose. They'll smell, like, rose perfume in that area, like, where she was, like, in the warden's room and everything. So that's one thing people report. And she's very active, apparently, that side of the whole thing. I also heard the 3rd floor. Remember that really creepy floor? It was the floor above that. I did not like that floor.
It attaches to the actual prison. Like, you gotta walk through, like a maze.
Yeah, it's that whole thing. But even that area is apparently very active, too. And a lot of people just don't like that floor, and a lot of the people who, like, work there will be like, I just don't like this section. There's just weird energy. Yeah, there definitely is. I don't even know, like, what that section was for, but it was just, like, it was also empty during the tour, too, you remember? It was, like, the floor above it was all kind of, like, staged to kind of, like, look like whatever time it would be, and then you would just go up a floor, and it was just, like,
it was weird,
empty. It was kind of creepy. It had a weird feeling because I think of the emptiness and just whatever else was going on up there. And then we're going to talk about the chair room.
That room was creepy,
that we went into. It's the only room that doesn't have windows. Now that they say that, I do remember that. There were, like, almost all of the other small...
they do, yeah.
And, like, the administration ring. All of them had windows, except that one room. Just did not have any, like, exterior windows. So it's reported that when the chair is moved from the center of the room, it will return to this. What? It will return back to the center
we should have moved it. Dang it, I did not know that.
That is
like we should have done that.
I didn't know that either. And then there's also reports of being pushed and scratched in that room.
I didn't feel any of that, did you?
And, like, people who are kind of, like, being kind of weird. I don't know. I didn't have any of that experience, but that's something that's reported in there. I mean, we had our own experience.
Oh, yeah, we did. Yeah, we'll talk about that later, but yeah.
The chapel is also a very active spot.
Really?
Ghosts will attempt to grab people who attempt to leave, which is kind of interesting. Huh. And then something else that came up was the hole.
Yes.
That you talked about.
Yes, that place. I did not like that place.
So there was we didn't like that. Like, just being in there was kind of creepy. But there's a story that 120 prisoners were placed into the solitary confinement cells for a week without food.
A week?
Like, 120 of them all had to fit into 12 cells.
Oh my god.
So there were, like, 10 in each, like, cell. And we saw how tiny they were. Can you imagine? They'd be, like, wall to wall. Yeah. And they were stuck down there, and that's when all that crazy stuff happened, was during this.
Oh, okay.
That you were talking about? That was during when this was going on.
Oh, okay.
Because they mentioned that, and then they told all of those things you were talking about, like, all those people died.
Right, the one that hung himself, and the guy
the person that got
caught
on fire.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, that all happened in that point of time, because people just kind of got crazy because they were trapped down there without food for a freaking week.
Wow, that's nuts.
Yeah, it was pretty wild. But yeah, I mean, when there's 215 deaths there.
Yeah, I know.
That was another number. And so the amount of people that went through there, like, to be, like, rehabilitated was 154,000.
Right. So really, if you think about it, that's not a lot of deaths. What?
That's not a lot.
No, that's what I mean. That's what I'm saying. Like, yes. And
yeah, that's a very small fraction for how many people went through there.
And I don't know if you read in your information that a lot of the people that they were actually rehabilitated that went through that system, because a lot of times when they go into jail, it's not about, it's basically making you feel regret for what you did, and making you feel remorseful for what you did, because a lot of them were poor. And so once they taught them about religion and get them educated and actually teach them a trade or a skill to use, once they get out in the real world, then they were able to make it in the real world, which I thought was pretty cool. They were able to...
They were doing that.
Right, to do it so many... Because, I mean, let's face it, the jails are overcrowded.
Yeah, especially that one.
Yeah.
4 people in a cell.
Yeah. And that's why it got shut down, because they said it was so...
That's why, yeah.
And they were having food shortages.
Filed, like, a civil suit.
Yeah. Yeah.
They filed like a thing and they won, and then it got forced to close, and they had a new one because we saw it, and I can't believe they had 4 people in there.
No, I can't either. There's no way. I mean, they barely had room for the 2 people that were supposed to be in there. I can't even imagine with 4 people in there. That had to have been nuts.
Yeah, like, where do you sleep? Do you sleep on the same bunk?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I guess your best buddies then, you know?
But yeah, that was mainly... Oh, there was also, in the East Cell block, people have spotted some shadow.
Oh, yeah, running around. Yeah, I heard about that,
like
too.
That one guy.
Yeah, like we saw in the video. The guy was talking about the...
There was a video, yeah. I remember, pulled it up, and the guy who investigates a lot, he saw...
Like a full body apparition up on
near the library, too. Yeah. I heard that the library is very active.
Really?
But
I could see that.
I don't know what's going on in there, but from what other people said, it's pretty active. But we can talk about our experiences now.
And what we saw and all that, So...
And just kind of how the whole thing was.
Yeah. It was pretty neat. Like, when you first walked in, they had it all set up to replicate some of the scenes from the movie Shawshank Redemption. They had it set up like the way the warden probably would have been back, you know, when there was a warden that lived there on property and stuff. And they had it set up like a dining room and, you know, their quarters where they would have lived on the 2nd floor and where his office and all that was. And they had a lot of memorabilia from the movie and that too, which was really kind of cool, especially for me. I was geeking out, but you know, if you're not into all that, you might not. But I thought it was neat because we watched that movie like every other week around here. But then we went on to different sections, and it started to get more interesting the further up the higher, because you start off on the 1st floor, like the main floor, and then it's
all kind of like staged, and like I said, it's when after we got from the 2nd floor to the 3rd floor is when it kind of got spooky.
Yeah, and weird.
It felt kind of just like it just felt weird. That 3rd floor, I didn't like the 3rd floor. And then we went in that one room, the chair room, as they call it.
That room was something. When we got into the chair room, all it is this enclosed room, and there's like a chair sitting in the middle of the room. And when we got in there, it was pretty crowded that day because there had been a run in the morning.
Yeah, we went on a Saturday.
Yeah, which was probably a big no-no. But when we were there, we happened.
Went back when it was less crowded.
Yeah, when we went there and got to that section, though, we were in front of a larger group, so they weren't anywhere near us, and we were the only ones in that room. And we all of a sudden we heard this noise and this giant bang in the room with us. And at first I thought there was like a grate on the floor, and I thought it had fallen off, but it didn't. It hadn't moved. We got this giant like bang while we were in there, which was really crazy. And kind of scary because we're like, what the heck?
Yeah, I thought it sounded like someone kicking a rock or something. That's what I heard.
I thought it was like something It sounded like something heavy falling. And that's why I thought it was the metal grate. But the grate was already down on the ground. So, but it was loud, whatever it was.
Yeah, and then we're in the room. And we're like, you know, a little spooked out. And then this guy, all of a sudden, the lights turn off, okay? And we both were like, oh my God, what's going on?
Right.
We're like freaking out. And then we turn around, and there's a guy who's flickering the lights on us. And he was like laughing. He was like, ha 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 ha. And we're like, bro, really? I was so freaked out.
Yeah, it was kind of scary.
Like, I thought
Right, we thought we were having an experience. We're like, oh, this is so cool.
I know, we were so excited. We're like, oh my God. And the guy was just punking us.
So then from there was, you would go down this hallway that led you to some more rooms. I don't know what all the rooms were. They must have been like the bedrooms of the family is the only thing I can think of. But one of them was set up for the bedroom, or for the hotel room that Brooks went to after he got released from prison in Shawshank. And it had the beam was there exposed, and it had his name where it said Brooks was here, and then it also had Red was here carved into it, and that was really cool to see that. And they had the room still set up the way Brooks's room was when he stayed in that apartment when he got out, so that was neat to see that. That room felt pretty okay. It was a pretty sunny, and then from there we went on.
And you go up to the chapel.
Right.
We went
up with
to
a creepy handprint on the wall.
Stairs,
remember that?
Weird stairs.
Yes, that was creepy.
Oh, yeah, the handprint on the wall. And we were like, what the heck?
There was this weird, like, white handprint at the top of these steps you couldn't go up. And I was like, this is so weird. It's very prominent. It was crazy. But we saw, and there was weird steps that went up that we couldn't go up. And then we went into the chapel room, which was crazy. It was really neat, though, because it's very Gothic in there. It's got all those Gothic pillars you would expect in like a Catholic church or whatever, and, all that type of architecture. I didn't get too many vibes in there, but that one door that you were peeking through.
There was also a lot of people.
Yeah. That one door that you were peeking into, like, through that hole, that was creepy. I got, you know, not so good vibes.
There was something weird
about
that.
That room was making me feel uncomfortable.
Well, I think that room, it leads to the west cell block. Because, like, you know how that one side leads to the east? I think that's the top of the west.
Oh, that does make sense now that I think about it. You're right. Okay, because that was, like, in the center.
Because then one side would be
right,
the west,
and that would make sense. Okay,
based on like where they were.
Right, yeah, you're right. I didn't even think about that, but you're right. Once we were done in there, then we descended down the steps into the east cell block, which was kind of that was very creepy. And I'll tell you what.
And it was so high up, like looking down. Like if you have a fear of heights,
don't look down there because you're gonna get sick. And it was very unsettling, and the steps, the steps were very kind of uneven, and they were very rusty because
there was that one that
moved. I know. I'm like, careful, you're gonna get hurt. Kept moving when you stepped on it. So we went down a flight, so that would have put us down, I guess, fourth or third. Yeah, it would have been the fourth. And when we went down on they had it blocked off where you couldn't walk all the way through on that particular row or whatever, or that section. But there was like a room on either side that you could actually look in to see what it was like. I'll tell you what, the side I went on, there was nobody around me or whatever, but it was weird. You could hear, it sounded like somebody was throwing like rocks or pebbles walking in those rooms. It was very dark in those rooms, and it was just really creepy. A little uneasy, not as uneasy as some of the other parts we were in, that my stomach was just like, oof. Do you remember anything from that part? That was the part where the lights, remember when we were standing over there?
Oh yeah, we would watch these. It was really weird. The lights would just like cycle off
so that
in a row.
Added to the whole experience. So from there, then we went down another level to, I think it was like level 2, maybe level 3. No, it'd probably be level 3 at that point.
Well, we went down enough that we could cross all the way across. And then we went to the place that the light. You could go up to the library.
And we went up to the library. The library was really neat.
And then you go down to the one place, the infirmary. I think.
No, when we went down, that was where all the showers were. Remember?
There was another one.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, no. You're right.
I was like, there's an infirmary, and then at the bottom
showers.
Was
right,
the
that's
showers.
Right. Okay, yeah, I forgot about the infirmary. So we went to the library next, and the library was in Shawshank. At first, they had a tiny library, but then Andy kept writing all these letters, and they got tired of hearing from them, and eventually they built it. So that's what you see now. Yeah, what you see there is the actual real library prison that was built at the time the prison was built. It was a very big library. I'll say that, wasn't it? Circulation desk they had, and they also had a weight room in there too. Was it not in there? No, wait, you're right. That's probably because if somebody got injured, they could, heal their legs or arms or whatever. So they could do physical therapy in there too. The library, though, I didn't get any vibes. There were like dead birds in the library. I don't understand what that was about. So then we went to, I guess, then it was down to the infirmary.
No, other than we saw the...
Right, yeah, the weird workout room in there, and that was about it. Because there wasn't a lot in that area. Yeah.
No, they were not really. It was just
right,
kind of
and you looked around, and that was it. And then we went down to the shower room. That was interesting, and that room was okay too. I didn't really feel anything in there, did you? Shower area down in the base. No, yeah,
not really. There was also a bunch of people in there. With
I
us,
know.
So it's hard to get
when there's a bunch of people like right on your behind, and that little kid making noises. Oh my God, that kid and his. I was like, dude, you need to stop making your weird noises. You're driving. Yes,
he was just making that noise.
He would keep clicking
again.
his. Bro. Making a clicking noise just to be annoying.
He would come up behind me and he would be like, "Can I look in there?" Because I was like looking in like little door holes or whatever to see it. And then he'd come up and be like, he would just stand behind me, and I was like, "What the fuck you want, kid?" And then he would just be like, "Can I have a turn to look in there?"
Sure,
and I was like,
for it.
I guess. I'm like trying to take freaking photos inside of it, and he's just like standing behind me waiting. I was like, what the heck, kid?
Yeah, he was making a lot of noises the whole time. We tried to stay ahead of them if we could. For the most part, we did, but there were a couple times where we were stuck with them. After that, we went and walked around the other side of the cell block, right? The east side.
Yeah, we walked in a big circle around.
And then we went to that area where there was the hole or solitary confinement, remember? Or you could go out into the yard. Or then you could go onto the west block. Yeah,
or you could go
to the west
other
block.
gate.
Yeah.
Yeah, the west block.
So then we went at that point, we went into the hole or solitary confinement. And that area was the creepiest and the darkest area I felt out of all the areas that Yes,
definitely
and
spookier.
You could definitely pick up a very Yes, very negative vibe in that area. I did not like walking down there because it was mostly me and her by ourselves. There was like two sides to it, and most of the people were already over on the other side and going out, and we were only on the one side all by ourselves, and it was pretty creepy. I could see why people would go crazy being locked in there like that, because there was no lights in these rooms, and the cells were very small. You were just like for days, they would say like up to 3 days, and they would feed you bread like every other day. Like you get one piece of bread and some water, and that's it. Yes. I know.
That sounds terrible. I would not feel that.
Yeah, we know, with your 10 stomachs. But yeah, so then we went. And when we were in that area, we heard voices, didn't we? Was it in there? There was somewhere where we heard voices, I think. Yeah, whispering. Like you hear like whispering. And you could also smell like... Yeah, cigarettes, it was either like cigars or cigarettes you could smell in that area too. And it wasn't like lightly. I mean, it was like very strong smell. But yeah, and then once we were done in there, we went to the West Block, and we just walked. We didn't really climb up and walk around up there because we'd already seen enough cells, and it was getting late.
We had also been pretty it was tired, and I was kind of grumpy because I was hungry. Yeah, they were closing too.
Right, and it was already like time. Yeah, so we hurried up and walked through there, and then that was.
Yeah, we also had to be back for something,
and that was pretty much it. But it was neat. I would like to go on the tour they have where you can actually go.
They have paranormal ones
and I'd also like to go see like the behind, like places that you don't normally see on the normal tours, like take you behind the scenes.
Well, I just want to go there. At the paranormal because they have private investigations too.
That's all we have today. If you have a chance, you really should go.
It's definitely in the middle of nowhere.
You could definitely see why they put it where they put it.
Yeah, there's like Mansfield's not very big. Pretty like out there, because my mom was like, where the heck are we driving? Because it was kind of pretty far from where we were. It's like at least an hour from us.
Yeah,
from where I am.
Where Kara's located at. But even that, like the roads we were on to get there, it was like way back roads, way out in the middle of nowhere. Yeah, it was kind of at nighttime. It'd be very spooky.
I know.
I will say that.
Gotta go back.
There was like no lights or anything like back that way. Yeah, so if you have the opportunity, you should definitely go check out the Ohio State Reformatory. It's a very cool place. There's a lot of history there, and it's just really fascinating to see what it was like there. And if you like Stephen King and you're really big into Shawshank Redemption, then yes, definitely go see it. It's very cool. Like I said. Stuff. Yeah, I was getting my geek on while we were there. I got lots of photos, so I was pretty excited.
You should watch it in preparation. I probably should watch it now that I've been there.
Yes, you should. It will make so much sense now that you watch it, and you can be
I probably have watched it. I just don't remember it. I know that Dad.
That's the only reason why I even know, because Dad stops on it every time. It was oh my God, and funniest thing ever, when I came home on Sunday and
was he watching it?
It was on the TV. I was like, oh my God. So I'd be like, ooh, I saw that.
Escape.
I was like, ooh, I saw that. Oh wait, I was there. I got to sit in that chair, and they're like, oh my God, we get it. Shut up.
Yeah,
they were a little jealous. I think they want to go. They want to go now too. But anyway, so that's it for this week. Hopefully you liked this different version of our show. If you did or you didn't, if you could.
I mean, it's kind of like our other one we did.
Yeah. So if you liked it, leave us a note. Let us know. And if you didn't like it, let us know. We know not to do it again.
Well, if you enjoyed our podcast today, follow us on Instagram at Two Scaredy Cats Podcast, and please be sure to leave a review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. It really helps the show get discovered. And tune in 2 weeks for a new episode, and to all our scaredy cats and kittens out there, remember, curiosity didn't kill these two scaredy cats.